During his time in Padua, Sant'Antonio devoted himself to serving the poor and marginalized, often visiting the city's most neglected neighborhoods to care for those in need. One day, he met a group of hungry and destitute families, abandoned by society and left to struggle for survival. Realizing that temporary aid would not be enough, he appealed to the city's wealthiest and most influential citizens, urging them to act with justice and compassion toward the less fortunate. However, they ignored him. Yet Sant'Antonio refused to be discouraged. With firm determination, he went to the bustling heart of the marketplace and, without hesitation, began to preach with passion and conviction. He opened his sermon with the parable of the Good Samaritan, telling the story of a wounded man left abandoned by the roadside, ultimately rescued with compassion by a passing Samaritan. Gradually, more and more people gathered around Anthony, enraptured by his words. His voice rose above the noise of the marketplace, capturing the attention of the crowd, who listened with devotion as he spoke of faith, love, and the sacred duty to care for one another.
Dear brothers and sisters, the priest and the Levite ignored the wounded man, but the Samaritan, moved with compassion, stopped and cared for him. So too does Christ act toward us. He sees the wounds that sin has inflicted upon our souls, binds them with mercy, and entrusts us to the care of His Church until His return. How often, dear friends, do we turn away from those in pain, caught up in our indifference? True love is shown in action. The Samaritan did not ask who the man was or where he came from. He helped him. Christ calls us to see in every person the image of God. Go then and do the same. Be Samaritans in a wounded world, for in loving your neighbor, you love Christ Himself.
After hearing Sant'Antonio's sermon, the crowd was deeply moved. A wave of compassion and renewed desire to do good swept through the people. So powerful was the impact of his words that several stepped forward, eager to accompany him in bringing aid to the hungry and destitute families he had encountered before arriving at the marketplace. As they made their way toward the poorest quarter of the city, they passed the shop of a baker, notorious for his greed. Every day, he watched the hungry linger outside his store, their eyes silently pleading for help. Yet he always turned them away, fearing any act of generosity would put his business at risk. Sant'Antonio approached him and said gently, "Brother, sharing bread does not impoverish, it enriches the soul." The baker hesitated. "If I give away my bread, I'll be forced to shut down my shop. How can I survive?" With calm assurance, Sant'Antonio walked over to a sack of loaves and blessed, saying, "Have faith, give and you will receive in abundance." Moved, the baker began handing out bread to the needy who had gathered in front of his shop. To his astonishment, the sack never emptied. The more he gave, the more it seemed to remain full, untouched by his generosity. Thanks to Sant'Antonio, the baker discovered a truth far greater than profit. True wealth is found not in accumulating, but in giving with love. Sant'Antonio's message calls us to break down the walls that divide us, to serve our neighbors with humility, expecting nothing in return, and to make love visible through our actions, thus bringing us closer to God. For this, we invoke His help. Dear Saint Anthony, model of compassion, help us to see the face of Christ in those who suffer. Teach us to act with mercy, to love with a generous heart, and to serve with willing hands. Grant that, like the Good Samaritan, we may bring healing, comfort, and hope to those in need. Amen.